You just had a great night. Dinner with
I'm so glad you
friends,
find
good
I know exactly what
conversation, people were laughing, and you were laughing too. And now you're home, sitting on the edge of your bed with your shoes still on, and you feel like you just ran a marathon that nobody else seems to remember signing up for. Meanwhile, somewhere across town, your extroverted friend is already texting the group chat at midnight asking where the after party is. Same event, same hours, completely different aftermath. And here's the part nobody talks about. It wasn't even a bad night. If you've ever felt that specific kind of tired that a full 8 hours of sleep still doesn't fix the next morning, you already know exactly what this is. You've probably spent years apologizing for it, coming up with excuses that sound more socially acceptable than the truth, or just quietly wondering if something is fundamentally wrong with you, if you're somehow less capable of being human than the people who seem to refuel in the same situations that completely level you. Nothing is wrong with you. What's actually happening inside your brain is more fascinating than most people in your life will ever take the time to understand. You feel it every time you come home from somewhere you were supposed to enjoy, and you're already dreading the next one before you've even recovered from this one. That experience has a name. More than one, actually. And by the end of this, you're going to understand yourself in a way that most people spend their whole lives never getting close to. Let's start with the actual physiology of why this happens. In the 1960s, psychologist Hans Eysenck proposed something that changed how scientists understand human personality at a neurological level. His theory of cortical arousal suggested that introverts and extroverts aren't just socially different, they are neurologically different. Introverted brains operate at a higher baseline level of internal stimulation, which means before you've even walked into the room, your nervous system is already more activated than most of the people you're about to be around. Think of it like a phone that's perpetually at 80% brightness. It works fine, it even works beautifully, but it drains faster than every other phone in the room. So when you add the full sensory load of a social environment, the noise, the eye contact, conversations happening in layers all around you, facial expressions to read, body language to track, the emotional temperature of every person near you, your brain isn't just attending the event, it's processing it deeply at a level most people around you aren't even aware is happening. That brings us to the second piece of this. Researchers call it attentional resource depletion in social contexts. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Research and Personality found that people who scored higher on introversion showed significantly greater cognitive fatigue after social interaction. But here's the part that changes everything. Not because they engaged less, but because they engaged more. They were more attentive, more invested in the quality of the conversation, more present with every single person in the room. The exhaustion isn't a sign you checked out. It's evidence that you were completely, fully in it the entire time. And then there's a concept called self-monitoring, introduced by psychologist Mark Snyder in 1974. High self-monitors are people who are acutely aware in real time of how they're coming across in social situations. They're constantly adjusting their tone, their expressions, their humor, the way they phrase something, not because they're performing, but because they genuinely care about how the interaction lands for the other person. That continuous act of awareness is like holding a heavy bag the entire time you're in a room full of people. You don't notice the weight in the moment, you feel it the second you set it down. That collapse you feel when you finally close your front door, that's your nervous system setting the bag down. Home isn't just home, it's the only charger that actually works for you. Here's what the world has told you since you were a kid. Push through it, go out more. You'll feel better once you're there. Say yes more often. And sometimes that's even true, you do have a good time. But then you come home completely wrecked, and suddenly you're the problem again. Too sensitive, too introverted, too much work. Stop. None of that was ever true. You were never broken, never antisocial, never less than anyone in that room. You are someone whose brain does significantly more work per social interaction than most people's brains do, and that extra processing has a real physiological cost. You can't argue with that, no more than you can argue with the fact that a high-performance engine burns more fuel. The fact that you feel drained after being deeply present with people isn't a personality defect. That's depth. That's what you bring to every room. Other people skim the surface of an interaction. You go into the water. And when you finally come up for air, you need more time to breathe. That's not a flaw in your character. That's the cost of caring. You're not exhausted because you dislike people. You're exhausted because you give everything when you're with them. If that sentence just described your entire social life, subscribe. This is where psychology actually gets honest. Now, here's something I'd be doing you a disservice to skip over. There's a healthy version of this experience, and then there's a version that deserves a second, more honest look. The healthy version looks like this. You go out, you engage fully, you come home, you decompress, you feel restored, and the cycle continues. That's self-knowledge doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The version worth examining looks like this. The dread starts before you've even left the house. You've already decided you'll be drained before the night begins. You start saying no to more and more until connection itself starts to feel like something that happens to other people. Ask yourself honestly, are you recovering or are you retreating? One leads you back to the world, the other slowly pulls you away from it. Know which one you're living in right now. What you've been carrying this whole time isn't a character flaw. It's not something to fix, manage, or apologize for. It's a wiring, a way of moving through the world that processes people at a depth most of them will never even realize is happening in real time. The version of you that shows up in a room full of people, careful, attentive, fully present, absorbing everything, that version of you is doing something remarkable. The fact that you need silence afterward isn't the embarrassing part. It's the inevitable consequence of showing up completely. The people in your life might not always understand why you disappear after a good night, but now you do, and that understanding changes something. The quiet you come home to isn't emptiness, it isn't loneliness, it isn't failure. It's your mind finally exhaling, and you've earned every second of it. Tell me in the comments, after a long night around people, does silence feel like relief or loneliness to you? Because those are two very different experiences, and the gap between them says something important about where you are right now. And the next video on PsychoLogic goes somewhere most psychology content refuses to go, a hidden pattern in the way you think that has been quietly steering your biggest decisions for years without you even knowing it was there. Click it. You're going to recognize yourself immediately.